All right, Gen Z is not growing up the same way that millennials did. What's up, guys, and welcome back. The gameplay you're seeing is Black Ops 7. Yes, Black Ops 7 finally dropped. I will do an entire video. This won't be a weekly Monday video or anything like that. I do plan, for those of you guys who are new to the channel, hi, my name is Dinah. I am the internet's big brother, well, Gen Z's big brother. And specifically in today's video, we're going to talk about, the main differences between Gen Z and millennials and, kind of why it's not the same. That obviously sounds different. It's a 15-year age gap. For those of you guys who don't know, millennials are those who were born in 1981 to 1996, and Gen Z is 1997 to 2012. And so obviously, we live in a digital age now. We live in a very dynamic, ever-changing landscape. And we'll get into some of the main differences. But before I do, I just want to say that, we do videos every single Monday morning on this channel. And this particular video, we're going to do something special. We're going to do a Black Ops 7 first impressions video because, I at the core of it, I do like Call of Duty still. And, it's a brand new Call of Duty. Let's talk about it. Let's get your feedback on it too. So if you played it, let me know in the comment section right now. What do you guys think about Black Ops 7? If you don't, and you just prefer the old school games, let me know which one of your old school CODs is your favorite. And of course, if you're new to the channel, leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Now, let's get into some of the main differences. I got a few bullet points here that I, looked up from ChatGPT as well as just random articles. This is something that I was curious about exploring and I just want to share it. It's nothing super groundbreaking. Again, you can just do this from a quick Google search, but hopefully we can get some conversations going as to, the differences and, who do you think grew up easier? Who do you think grew up harder? And who has the better future, I guess we'll see out there. So the first point that some of the articles were talking about is when it comes to ideas, right? Millennials are very competitive and achievement oriented. Gen Z leans more towards the creative and entrepreneurial side. And I think this is really true. Honestly, to be quite honest with you guys, I am very, very much at the cusp of Gen Z and millennial myself. So I kind of dabble in both, right? Part of me, because I have older siblings or an older sibling, it's like, I grew up in a way where it was like, oh, okay, this guy, he's definitely a millennial. And since I didn't grow up with younger siblings, but I have younger friends and obviously more and more in the digital age, it's I'm being pushed into Gen Z worlds more than millennial worlds. I kind of see this to be true. And I think of Instagram and TikTok and social media when it comes to that, right? A lot of people, if you follow a 35-year-old versus a 20-year-old, not that you should be following a 20-year-old, maybe a 25-year-old, let's say, right? That's the main difference between millennial and Gen Z. Both people are probably, maybe they could be in the same landscape where it's same job market. Maybe they're have an Instagram account for a few years. Millennials are competitive, right? They post things because they want the likes. They care about their follower count, all that stuff. Gen Z, I feel Gen Z really dabbles in the creativity and the entrepreneurial. Gen Z is very authentic. And I'll talk about that in my next point too, but they don't dabble with things that don't interest them. A lot of the Gen Z YouTube videos, for instance, out there's a lot of YouTubers out there who are blowing up and they're mainly there because of the authenticity. And that's kind of what I want this channel to be. Again, I'm not Gen Z, but I do value authenticity. And I think as you'll go down this list and maybe check off okay, which one do I lean more toward? Do I lean more towards competitiveness or creativity? Hopefully you can kind of look back or look through this as well and kind of okay, am I Gen Z or am I millennial? Which side do I relate more? Obviously you have a birth one because of, when you were born, you are assigned to either Gen Z or millennial. But again, and I probably should have prefaced this disclaimer, this is not a one size fits all, okay? It doesn't mean that if you're born in 1999, you are 100% Gen Z and you can have no millennial traits. That's not what it means. It just means, this is hopefully something that helps you identify and relate more towards why you are the way you are. And it has to do with a lot of, I guess, nature. And obviously the biggest thing is internet and essentially social media, internet, that's the main difference between millennials and Gen Z and how we grew up. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to this is the polished look versus the raw look. And I kind of dabbled on this when it comes to Instagram and TikTok, right? When it comes to Instagram, many millennials out there curate everything, right? They especially way back in the day. I think nowadays it's kind of shifting more towards the Gen Z side. But, when I first started using Instagram, back in my day, a lot of people wouldn't post things unless it was they had a million filters and they had the best caption possible. And they made sure to post at Friday at 3 p.m. or Sunday morning or, whatever the best time of day was. Like nowadays, Gen Z, man, it's just authentic. It's just, hey, I had a fun night at a party on Saturday night. I'm posting it Saturday night at midnight. That's what it is. Or I'm posting a story. People are authentic. They're very raw now. They value that because they know, I think they're sick of it. I harp on Mr. Beast a lot, but he kind of is responsible for the like, oh my God, shock value. Look at this face. Look at this huge gasp on my face. Like people are sick of that. It's not just on Instagram and TikTok. Like people are sick of it when it comes to YouTube. I think that's why I want to shout out Wylearn real quick because, no offense, but his thumbnails, especially like way back in the day, were just very, very basic. There was no fancy color saturation. There's no big text in your face. It was just, well, I guess there was big text, but it wasn't like, oh man, a huge like thumbnail designer designed this and this guy spent like $50 per thumbnail. It wasn't like that. Like he literally took a picture of like a, what do you call it? Like a mono for two lobby or something like that, slapped on some like impact font text or something like that. And then just like called it a day, got like 100,000 views on a few videos. It's like, yeah, people appreciate the authenticity. They don't need a Mr. Beast thumbnail every single time they go into YouTube. And again, no shade to Mr. Beast or anything, but I was just saying, like, that's the changing landscape when it comes to social media. And also, if you've been on TikTok at all, like I haven't been on TikTok in a while, but I remember when I was on it, a lot of people were just simply talking to their phones. There was no fancy background music, no snap cut edits. It was just authentic. Like, hey, this is my day, or hey, this is what I'm thinking about, or here's 5 dating tips. Here's a movie I just watched, right? It's very authentic. There was no fancy stuff going on. I think people appreciate that. And honestly, like I kind of lean towards that nowadays. I kind of appreciate when people are more authentic and like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't mind well edited videos. I don't mind when people, really try to make a quality video. I don't mind that, but I think the authenticity is the biggest thing that I'm taking from, what I read from these articles. Next up, I want to talk about income. When it comes to income, like money, 9 to 5, stuff like that, millennials always think that side hustles are gonna be a side hustle. And this is where I kind of lean towards it. However, if you ask Gen Z, again, this is not every single person out there, but a majority of them, the thought process is that, hey, I can be a streamer. I can be a content creator. I can be an influencer. I don't have to go the traditional college route. I don't have to finish high school. I don't have to take, a master's in XYZ. This is the way people are thinking now because they can see it. There is success out there. There are streamers out there who are like 25, 26 years old who play video games all day or who talk to a camera all day, and that's their life. Obviously if you're in the Call of Duty world, many of them. If you're like a girl watching this for some reason, like there's makeup brands out there, there's cooking channels, there's everything out there. Because of the way the internet works, you can literally start a business today. And it's nowhere near as difficult as it was like 20, 30 years ago. Obviously, with the barrier to entry being a lot lower, you're going to have a lot more people kind of just doing what they want to do. Nobody wants to do like a 9 to 5. I don't want to say nobody, but very few people out there choose willingly to do a 9 to 5 if they have another option out there. And I think a lot of people are seeing, yeah, I do have another option. I can play video games. I can be entertaining. I can get paid because of my personality. Comment below if you're Gen Z, if you've ever thought about like having a side hustle as a viable option. Like not a viable option in terms of like, oh, this will always just be like a grand for me or something like that. And like, no, like, can this be a full-time gig? Can I quit my 9 to 5? Do I not need to rely on a business, a corporation? Like me personally, I'm on the millennial side here because maybe it's the way I grew up. Maybe it's because I'm like very like security conscious. I will never think that YouTube, Instagram, whatever I end up doing, even if I get to like 1 million subs and stuff like that, like I don't think I'll ever do that because I know that it can be taken away in the blink of an eye through no fault of my own. I guess you could say the same about a 9 to 5 job, but I think the risk of losing a 9 to 5 job is a lot less like randomly than when it comes to like YouTube or a side hustle. And speaking of jobs, let's transition over to jobs. How do people interpret jobs? How do people go about, doing jobs? So for millennials, I would say it's role hopping, right? And for Gen Z, it's job hopping. Millennials don't really want to leave because it's just a hassle to get another interview and to, try to negotiate for salary and all that stuff. And most people are just like, oh, I should be thankful that I'm at a company, especially in this job market. Low key, you kind of should be thankful for wherever you're at. Whereas Gen Z, it's kind of like the moment you're dissatisfied, the moment you're unhappy, the moment you feel like you're getting underpaid, it's just like, see ya, I'm out. I'm trying to do me. And there's, I guess, less loyalty. I'm not saying this is for every single person out there. Again, don't get it twisted. But a lot of people out there, yeah, this is the sentiment. This is what I hear from a lot of Gen Z friends. It's just like, oh, I'm underpaid. Oh, you make this much? Like, dang, yeah, I'm trying to leave. I'm not really trying to stay right now. I hear that a lot from millennials and Gen Z. But when it comes to millennials, yeah, it's more about role hopping. Like, what role can I get in this company? What role should I go for a certificate for? Or should I go for, whatever XYZ degree for? And in that way, people are finding their happiness through different ways. That's kind of the point of this video, right? Like, how is Gen Z finding their happiness or doing what they want? And what is Gen Z, what is millennials prioritizing? Like they prioritize different things, even though it's like not that far off in terms of the grand scheme of things. There is main differences still too. Let's switch gears again to communication. Millennials prefer digital, but they do value the face-to-face communication a lot. I think a main example here is millennials will text. They will text, hey, can I call you in 5 minutes? Can I call you in 30 minutes? And Gen Z, they straight up just call. I actually did this before. This is kind of where I lean more towards the Gen Z side. But I remember back in college, I had a older brother figure friend, and I was just driving, and I just straight up called him. I was like, hey, I had a 30-minute drive. Let's hit this guy up. I haven't caught up with him in a minute. And he picks up. He's like surprised, and I'm like, oh, what's so surprising? He's like, oh, normally like people text me first, and I'm like, oh, I mean, are you busy? Like, can you still talk? He's like, yeah, I can talk. And then I was like, oh, okay. I mean, you didn't really need to say that, I guess, but I guess like that's the main difference, though, right? Like, people are wired different ways. Obviously, like he is a millennial, and so he's probably like used to people more so behaving like him. And so I'm a younger guy. Again, I'm at the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. So maybe he thought through that interaction that I was more so on the Gen Z side. Honestly, I feel like I'm 50-50. If anything, I probably lean a little more towards the Gen Z side. I keep saying Gen Z, but the Gen Z side more so than the millennial side. And yeah, I'd be curious to know if you're still here and you haven't left a comment yet, which one do you lean more towards? Not like what your age is, but I think most of my audience actually is Gen Z, but maybe you lean more towards the millennial side, let me know. But yeah, millennials, well, honestly, both millennials and Gen Z, both, especially in this day and age, like prefer, or they understand like how important like the digitalness is. It's, a lot of people, me included, I kind of grew up at the cusp of it, but there was a time, man, where dial-up internet was the main thing. There was no such thing as text messages, right? We had flip phones. If you wanted to play like Call of Duty back in the day, you needed to be like basically wired, because otherwise you were getting like 2 megabytes down, 2 megabytes up, or something like that. Nowadays, we got like 500, 1,000. We got fiber. It's totally different nowadays, right? But back then, man, you had to pay a lot to get good internet. You had to pay a lot to get Xbox 360 and live service stuff, Netflix and things like that. We got a couple more here. I know this video is kind of long, but hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Next thing I want to talk about is privacy. Millennials use social media to showcase their achievements, like I said before, on social media, but also like LinkedIn, right? Like you won't see that many Gen Z people. This might be a hot take, but you won't see many Gen Z people boasting and bragging on LinkedIn. They don't see that as necessary because, again, it's not authentic to them. A lot of people are just like, oh, LinkedIn is just a cesspool of people just stroking their own ego and, congratulating each other about like literally nothing. Honestly, I feel that too. Again, another point for me for Gen Z, I guess. But a lot of millennials out there do prioritize LinkedIn. They use it as, hey, I need this network. I need a job through this network. I need a job through LinkedIn. Gen Z actually prefers privacy. That's why you see so many like close friends stories and, everyone has Instagram, but then nobody posts anything, right? Because they value their privacy. They want to make sure that whoever's seeing their stuff is like a true friend, that they're not going to be afraid of like being judged or whatever. It's a different landscape that we live in. Maybe that's just Instagram as a whole right now, but I've noticed a huge uptick of like, oh, why do I have like 800 followers? And then I see like 20 stories a day, like what's going on? Everyone else just like a dead account, or, everyone's just like not caring about stuff. A lot of people just use Instagram nowadays mainly just to look at reels, just to send reels. It's very privacy focused now, right? It's not about like, look at me, I went to the bar with like 4 friends, here's a drunk picture. Like people don't do that anymore. And if they do, it's on their close friends list. It's privacy. The people who still do that stuff, those are like the like unks that you see on like Facebook who are like posting random pictures. It's like, wow, you are definitely a millennial, right? Again, one's not better than the other. It's just kind of how you like differentiate. And the last thing I'll talk about is learning. Again, there's a ton we can talk about between the differences in millennials and Gen Z, but I just wanted to, just to share this. This is something that I think will resonate a lot with the channel. But learning, yes, millennials, and this is something I would say a point for me when it comes to millennials, but millennials are really, really about education, schooling, university, credentials, things like that. Whereas Gen Z, they're okay learning from YouTube. They're okay learning from TikTok and Reddit and customer reviews on Amazon, right? Like they don't care nearly as much. It's just like, oh, I want to learn, I don't know, Spanish. Okay, boom. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Duolingo. I'm on Reddit. And then, oh shoot, in like a few weeks, I'm done. Whereas millennials, they're probably looking at like, oh, like I got to take Spanish in high school. And then I got to find like the best Spanish class in college. Maybe I'll take one on the side. They prefer the credentials, the institutionalized like era of schooling and learning versus Gen Z kind of figure it out yourself or figure out free ways or cheap ways. And because of the internet, we can do that nowadays, right? Again, 20 years ago, that was not an option. You had to go to school. You had to hire a Spanish teacher if you wanted to learn that kind of stuff. Nowadays, you open it, you download an app or two, boom, you can learn it yourself. Google Translate, Duolingo, right? You can figure it out yourself. Again, I do want to end this video by saying one is not better than the other. Okay. It's not about that. It's about highlighting the differences so that you can understand, because guess what? When you go in a workplace, when you go for a master's, when you go for, I don't know, anything where it's going to be a mixed bag, your church group, your hiking group, your running club, it's going to be a mixed bag. This is how you can understand people better, right? I think that's a very important thing that, I do want to highlight on this channel sometimes. It's understanding people, empathizing. It's not about, oh, this guy is old and he'll never understand me and I'll never understand. No, that's not what it's about. We're people, right? We're called to love each other. We're called to be there for each other. No, I'm not saying you have to be best friends with every millennial out there if you're a Gen Z or vice versa, but there is credence to it. There is importance to being on the same team in this world. There's enough division out there. Anyway, man, hopefully you enjoyed. I know I yapped a lot in this video, but hopefully you enjoyed this video, man. I enjoy Black Ops 7. Quick notes on Black Ops 7. I have a lot of fun with it. There's no skill-based matchmaking for once. And the maps are all overall like pretty colorful. They're not the best maps out there. Some are better than others. But I think that it'll be a fun year. We're going to have a good time on this game. I'm thinking about starting a Twitter. If you are interested in that, let me know. I also got channel memberships in the comments or in the description. I think it should be in the description. So if you're interested in signing up for that, feel free to do so as well. I might be throwing up streams here and there now that Black Ops 7 is out and, it's actually a fun Call of Duty game again. That might be a thing, so stay tuned for that. Hit the noti bell if you have not already, and subscribe and leave a like if you haven't done those as well. But yeah, man, with all that being said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, let me know in the comments section if you want to see any specific videos or specific topics out there. I'd be curious to know what you guys want. And feel free to send emails to Dear Dinah. That will be in the description down below as well. So that's it for the video, guys. Leave a like, and yeah, let me know your thoughts on Black Ops 7 if you have it. I'll see you guys later. Peace.